being the fastest quarterback you've never seen. I'll be right back. There's no quicker way to get into DFS. Play Super Draft today and see for yourself.
We're behind. They're all fired up. What we got to do? First place, our defense has got to go out there and take the ball. Then when we get the ball, we got to have 11 people that's going to do their job and try to score every time you get the football. If we do that, we'll be all right. Do that, we'll be all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want that smoke, this is the place to get it. Welcome to the CTS Sports Room. Welcome to the Bama Smoke. Before we get started, we got some business to take care of. Now, you know we're on the road to 2,000. Hit that subscribe button right now. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, go ahead and do it right now. If you haven't told your friends and family, your cousins, your baby mamas, if you haven't done that, go ahead and pick up the phone and start dialing. Let people know about the CTS Sports Room because we're on the road to 2,000 and we got to get there. If you got to help us, you need to help us. Also, we're going ahead and tell you about some great stuff coming up. We got Roman Harper coming next Thursday. Now, unfortunately, we didn't air live Thursday. Bad weather happened. I apologize. We're doing the Bama Smoke tonight. Also, what we also got is some guests tonight. Now, before I introduce the guests, I want to go ahead and give some love to my boy, Jonathan Lewis. He's been out of the game a couple weeks, but he's coming back slowly. Go ahead and go to his YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you watch all his content because if you're a real college football fan, you're watching college football with Jonathan Lewis. Now, our first guest, he is the host of the Bama Standard. He is running the Justin Riley Network. He also has a new YouTube page called the Bama Standard. And he's also a man that helped put CTS Sports on the map. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Justin Riley.
Roll Tide,
Justin,
roll
how you
Tide,
doing today?
everyone. Hey, Joey, glad to be on, man. Glad to be on a Friday night as we're 2 weeks away from kickoff.
2 weeks from the whoopings. Because of our next guest, I couldn't say the A word. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is supposed to be on CBS Sports, Fox Sports, ESPN Sports, Your Mama Sports, somebody's sports channel. I don't know what he's doing here. When you get somebody on this guy's caliber, someone who can speak, somebody who knows the knowledge of the game, you're honored, you're privileged to get him to come on your channel. He comes on here all the time. I love this guy. He's the reason why I do college football because basically I go to his channel and steal all his content. And you can catch him right now on Around the Table Sports. Go and subscribe right now. He's building this community. This community is one of the best communities of all sports. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Ty Hayes.
Hey, how y'all doing?
What's going on, brother? Glad to be on
Now,
with you again.
on a scale of 1 to 10, how was my intros?
Oh, it's a solid 9.
It's probably like your bank account overdrawn in the negative. No, it was perfect, man. We really appreciate you. Appreciate the love you show us each and every time we come on here.
Of course, we also supposed to have somebody else come on. Kangaroo Black, I don't know where you're at. He said he was coming on tonight. He no-showed. But go to his page too and subscribe. And he also is going to see Kangaroo Black on Tuesdays on Rolling with the Tide right here on the CTS Sports Room. But we're not going to talk about that round. We got some Alabama football news. The reason why we're all here today is Najee Harris, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Naji has, if this put his drip right here. There he is. He's handsome. Roll Tide, Nick Saban Jr. How you doing, sir? Najee Harris. Pittsburgh Steelers rolling back. Najee Harris is the all-time leading rusher in the history of Alabama football and the national champion. But his relationship with legendary head coach Nick Saban was not always proper. He's quoted as saying, "Me and Saban, we did not get along at first." Harris said on a podcast, we had a couple of arguments at first because he just didn't understand the kind of dude I was. I'm not the type of dude to sit back and just let somebody talk to me. I guess in a way and not expect me to say something. I can take coaching, but there's just a certain type of line when you cross it. I'm like, I'm a man. You ain't going to talk to me that way. Now, we are all, Ty, Justin, all played football before. We played some type of sport. I played football. Justin's played football. Ty, I'm sure you played football or you played tennis. All I'm saying is, sometimes coaching, the military, it can sometimes gets a little rough. It's a lot of yelling. I want to know two things. One, what did you think about Najee Harris' comments? Two, what was your relationship with certain coaches that used to like to yell and scream in your faces?
Yeah, so I'll start. I'll be brief. I think that it's a lot to do about nothing. I think you're kind of hinting at the basic thesis of this, which is if you've been in that environment, you're going to butt heads with authority figures, especially in a sport like football. I mean, the nature of the game it's high intensity all the time. And then you think about not only is it a bunch of guys, it's football, but it's Alabama. So the expectations, the intensity is even higher. I think it's a lot to do with nothing. And if anything, if we really want to read into this, this is overwhelmingly positive. Let me explain why. Because this is an example of what makes a successful teacher and a successful coach. Because if you listen to what Najee Harris is saying, he and Saban weren't seeing eye to eye. They were from two different paths of life. And it's two different generations, right? You're talking someone who's in the older generation, someone who's in a younger generation. But even though they butt heads, at the end of the day, if you listen to Najee's podcast, he said that everything kind of culminated in a moment. They had a big argument. It didn't look good, but now they have a fantastic relationship. That's important, right? Now they have a fantastic relationship. Because one of the things that makes great teachers or great coaches great is understanding that you're not going to be able to teach and coach every kid the same. Kids are different. People are different by nature. And because of that, the best teachers, the best coaches figure out how to get information to the individual so that they can digest it best. Because especially in a game like football, if that happens, everybody's going to understand things. So whenever I hear at the end of this, oh, we had this rocky relationship, but it all kind of culminated in one argument. And then after that, we understood each other. I mean, that sounds to me like it was a moment of reckoning for both parties, unless I'm reading too much into it. And it was a moment of understanding for Saban and a moment of understanding for Naji. I think this is only going to help Saban moving forward, especially with the younger generations, because it probably was a teaching moment for everybody involved.
All right. Justin, before we get started with your comment, The man that I've been talking about. The man, the myth, the legend. Blah, blah. The man who doesn't take crap from Georgia fans. The man who doesn't take crap from Auburn fans. The man who don't take crap from any type of fan. Ladies and gentlemen, you see him on Tuesday nights on Rolling with a Tide at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. He has one of the best Alabama football YouTube pages of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only. You're black. Can you read black? You're late.
I'm sorry, I'm late. I was told the wrong time. I believe they told me to log in at 8:20.
You're good, man. Glad to have you on with us.
Better
All right,
late than never.
Appreciate it.
All right, so I'm gonna get your take, Naji. I saw your video on Najee Harris and Nick Saban. Just the people who haven't seen your video, go ahead and tell everybody what your take on Najee Harris and Nick Saban's relationship.
For the most part, man, I think the relationship is now. I think it's pretty good, but then maybe not so much. But I just think Najee Harris wasn't, when he got to Alabama, he wasn't used to that kind of coaching, hard coaching, because it's totally different in high school with star players. So I don't think he was used to that hard coaching. And as far as Nick Saban, I think the way Najee Harris responded to him, he probably was taken back because he wasn't used to that from the place. So that probably had, they probably had differences in that area. But I also think Najee Harris knew what was best for him, even though they was bumping heads for 3 years. That's why he came back that fourth year, and that fourth year they made amends and everything, and been good since then. So right now I think they got a great relationship.
All right, Justin, what's going on? Tell us.
Okay, well, from the onset, I think that the disagreement, if you will, between Najee and Coach Saban in the beginning is indicative of this generation. Like Kangaroo Black just mentioned, player treatment in high school is a lot different. And those in authority figures, especially coaches now, are adjusting their style, their teaching style to accommodate this new wave of athlete and generation, more so coddling them. Well, Nick Saban is not one to do that. Never has been, never will be. He's not. He does adapt to the game changing, and there's no question about that. But his style, his militaristic style, is something that's not really well received in this new age of athlete and kids in general. So naturally, when those athletes who come in from the coddled environment run into that, they're gonna be button heads. They're gonna buck. They're gonna have some issues. However, what we really need to focus on is not so much that, but like these gentlemen have just mentioned, what they did afterwards, how they worked this out, and ultimately formed a bond that rewarded both of them in the end.
Justin Haynes said today on his football field, we want Keon Keeley.
Oh, Justice Haynes has been actively recruiting Keon Keeley. As a matter of fact, he's got an army of others in this recruiting class who are trying desperately to get Keon. Speaking of Justice Haynes, he just housed it 96 yards for a touchdown.
And before that, he put on a deadly move on Tony Mitchell to take it like a 26-yard touchdown in the backfield. I mean, he put Tony Mitchell on skates.
And Tony Mitchell got him there.
Yeah, and Tony Mitchell was in the backfield instantly, but man, Justice Haynes is good.
Hey,
well, we got some sad news to report. Well, it's not really sad. It's just a man moving on with his life. We all remember one of the greatest quarterbacks to play at University of Alabama, Blake Sims. Now, that's not an opinion. That's just a fact. I enjoy watching this kid play. I mean, everybody likes the Rocky Balboa story. When we saw Coco come in from Florida State and he was kind of passed over, and then competed for the job for starting quarterback and won it. I was really happy for this kid. And when I call him a kid because, I mean, I'm a lot older than he is. So I guess I've reached that age now where I can call him a kid. But many Alabama fans will remember former Alabama quarterback Blake Sims. And after 6 years of playing pro football in the CFL, NFL, and arena football, he's also had a stint with Atlanta Falcons and Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the practice squad. He's now officially retired from pro football. I'm going to start with Justin. Justin, what's your memories of Blake Sims? Somebody you have with, if you will. Y'all have a relationship. He's been on your show many times.
Yeah.
What's your memories on Blake Sims?
Well, first and foremost, yeah, Blake's a great guy. I spoke to him this morning after the announcement was made. He's really excited about this next chapter in his life and very appreciative of the outpouring of love from fans. But as we talked before the show started, I think the biggest thing for me is that he was the trailblazer. He was the one who ultimately set this air raid off that we're accustomed to these days. And what's sad is he's not given enough credit for what he's done. You know, it's like everybody starts the story with Jake Coker, like you said, and then goes on from there and completely bypasses Blake Sims. And that to me is just a tragedy. It's irresponsible, you know, as far as, you know, as a college football fan. You know, look at the guy who founded this. Look at the guy who got this thing started first year, broke every record, passing record in Alabama history. He did some amazing things. I think we need to give him more credit. And my question is to you guys, is the reason that he is not given his proper due because he didn't have that title on his resume as the starter? Yes, he won one, you know, as a backup and as a member of other teams, but is he not mentioned in conversations because he didn't have it as a starter? But man, listen, the best memory I have was the Iron Bowl in 2014. After throwing 6 interceptions, yes, 6 interceptions, mounted an insane comeback and ultimately leading us to victory and probably one of the best games I've ever seen. That's one of my best memories of him. And also too, the Texas A&M game, man, when he pulled a sick move that I think he broke several ankles, and I hope they had ankle insurance in that game because those guys were hurting, man. But just a phenomenal athlete, completely changed the game, and he kind of carried Alabama into that next phase of football. Grateful for what he's done.
Well, he's mentioned in all my conversations. I love watching Blake Sims. He's on my Facebook page. So Blake Sims, if you're watching, come to the CTS Sports Room. I mean, come on. I've been asking. I'm tired of asking. Ladies and gentlemen, Kangaroo Black. Kangaroo, what's your memories of Blake Sims?
Well, I think my earliest memory of Blake Sims, I don't remember who we played, but he was a backup at the time. And I think we scored a go-ahead touchdown. You know, what about minute and a half left in the game, and he was on the sideline, man, and he was celebrating. You know, like he threw the touchdown. So that showed me he was a great teammate as well as a great player. You know, and like he said, he don't get the credit due. Basically, I think because he didn't win a national championship as a starter, but we got to look at that. He won a SEC championship as a starter, and he got us to the first playoff game. And you know, I think he was probably the first. Well, I know he was the first quarterback to wait the whole 5 years, 4 or 5 years. He waited and got his chance. So you know, he started out as a running back, and they switched position, and he waited. So he had to be basically just a great teammate for 4 or 5 years before he got his chance.
Now, Ty Hayes, I'm sorry, Justin. Go ahead. I was
going to say that game you mentioned was LSU game back when A.J. McCarron threw that swing pass to T.J. Yeldon that ultimately won the game. Yeah, he was on the sideline celebrating like he just did it. But man, yeah, he was ultimately sending praise towards AJ McCarron. And yeah, like you mentioned, man, one of the biggest things here, as we look at we're in the transfer portal generation. He had how many position changes before he finally settled in and was named the starter at quarterback? He went from quarterback to running back to safety to quarterback, back to running back, and then finally back to quarterback again. That wouldn't happen in this day and age, man. He just waited his time, and it ultimately paid off.
Yeah, Marvin. Yes, yeah, he did it again. He interrupted me again. Yeah, you want to take care of that? Thank you, Marvin Constant. All right, thank you, man. That was Marvin. He's going to kick your butt next time he sees you. Don't interrupt me again. All right, Ty.
Yeah. So like both gentlemen before me said, I completely agree. I must admit, before the show started, Justin and I were talking about this, and I think if I was to ask both of you, Kangaroo and Justin, some of the most underrated Alabama players we've ever seen, Blake Sims has got to be high on that list in terms of a player who doesn't get near the recognition they deserve. And ultimately, I completely agree. I think the travesty in it is because we didn't win the national championship. And that year they came up against a very good Ohio State team. And if memory serves right, Ezekiel Elliott ran all up and down the field on us to the tune of like 235 yards, something like that. I digress, right? Regardless, if any running back runs for 200 plus yards on you, your chances of winning probably doesn't matter what your quarterback is doing, right? I'm not saying he played a perfect game. Point being, he had a great season. I'll never forget that A&M highlight Justin alluded to. That to me is a play I will never forget. It goes up there with me, that Trent Richardson Ole Miss run where he juked the defender into the ground. Yeah. Took his helmet off and slammed it into the turf because he was so mad. it's up there in terms of just like iconic plays for me for Alabama. So yeah, this is someone who I really am surprised they never are in more conversations for the elite players, certainly in the Saban era. Goodness gracious, the fact that he's never mentioned in the Saban era is just wild to me, let alone overall.
Well, everybody I talk to brings up Blake Sims. I'm not saying a lot of people bring him up. You probably got a point, where you live or certain parts of the country, but Blake Sims, where I come from, Blake Sims is always in the conversation. One of the great quarterbacks of University of Alabama. Now,
as he should
be. Somebody I think was underrated, and I used to mess with him a lot. Or somebody you probably don't remember, Spencer Pennington. I didn't take into account. Actually, Justin was the one that actually educated me and talked about the injuries he had, and that was one of the quarterbacks I hated watching. He was a third string quarterback. He just was throwing interceptions, but I didn't know about the stuff that was going on behind the scenes with all the injuries and how he got beat up on the field. So, somebody like that, I think, is somebody who's underrated.
I think, from a national media perspective, you never hear the name Blake Sims when anybody's talking about Alabama, and it's just not right, man. I think both the guys before me, they hit the nail on the head in terms of his impact and lasting impact for what he meant for the program.
Yeah. So, Blake Sims, enjoy the rest of your life. I'm sure you're going to make a lot of money somewhere. Probably not in Alabama, but Eli Ricks.
Yes.
All right. Just came out a couple of days ago. He's got injured. I don't know how long he's going to be injured. I don't know if he's come. Is it here? Let's look up the updates. All right, so Nick Saban shared from Bama Center FM, Fan Nation, I believe. Nick Saban shares new information regarding Eli Ricks' injury, along with mental health update on Cohen. As the Alabama Christmas tab prepares for a second scrimmage, Nick Saban get an update about Ricks during Wednesday's press conference. He's got a little back problem. Saban said he hasn't been able to practice since last week's scrimmage. Saban said he doesn't think the injury will keep the former transfer from LSU out, but he won't know until Ricks returns to the field and makes progress. I think this is a minor problem. This is something that he's a tough kid. He's going to, Justin's already biting to the lip. He always wants to talk. Justin, what do you think about Eli Ricks being injured? And do you think it's going to affect Alabama?
I'm going to keep it brief, but gentlemen, I don't know what's more concerning, the supposed injury situation, or the fact that he's not picking up the playbook. He's having a hard time making that adjustment. And I think that the injuries are just being reported to kind of mask that he's just not quite adapting on the field. And if he doesn't get that, make that transition well, he's got Terrion Arnold breathing down his neck, because here lately, from what I've been told in practice, he's surging ahead. This dude's ready to ball out. And if Eli Ricks, with all that camaraderie coming in with him, doesn't perform to the level that we're expecting, this young kid, this 5-star from the 2021 class, may be on the field.
Well, maybe it's a language barrier. You heard what his last coach sounded like when he talked. Nick Saban kind of sounds intelligent. I mean, I don't, maybe Kangaroo Black, Eli Ricks. Do you think we're gonna see him in 2022?
Probably as a backup.
Oh no, he did not.
Probably as a backup, because you can't, if you can't get the scheme and you don't know the defensive alignment and what you're supposed to do, you just can't get on the field. Not at Alabama. You got to know what you do. I mean, that's anywhere. I mean, yeah, he coming from LSU with a lot of hype surrounding him, but at Alabama, hype is not going to get you on the field. You know, and like you said, it is a lot of praise going to Terrion Arnold, a lot, and that's not only from the coaches, that's from the players too. So, I mean, in my opinion, I think the starting cornerback is going to be Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. Game one. That's just my opinion from what everybody is saying.
Ty,
so
go ahead, Kangaroo Black.
I'm finished. Go ahead.
Ty, is Kangaroo speaking opinion or he's speaking facts?
I mean, look, he's 100% right. I think upside wise, we know who Eli Ricks is. I don't need to go into this conversation. Upside, right? If everything's going well, if he knows the playbook, when he's in his zone, we know what he can do. He's one of the best corners in the nation. The prospect of him with Kool-Aid is an incredible one to think about. And then you think about Terrion coming in there as well, someone who, like both the guys before me, that's a dude who can play just about every position in the secondary at a high level. I'm not joking. Y'all, if you want to have fun, go watch his high school highlights. You're going to have a great time because he can do it all. But like they both said, if you don't know the defense, it doesn't matter what your upside is. It doesn't matter how great you could be, because Alabama's defense is complex enough as it is. You have to have some level of understanding just to try and grasp it. If it's not there, look, that's going to be real tough. At this point, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt and say that injuries and lingering injuries are the reason why he's not been able to fully pick up the playbook, right? But at the end of the day, like both gentlemen before me said, if you don't know the playbook, it really doesn't matter what happens. He's not going to be the guy. And look, Kyrie's there. He's got a lot of upside. Terrion Arnold's there. He's got a lot of upside. I love what Kool-Aid can do when everything's right. His upside, I think, is going to be phenomenal. So, I mean, it's going to be something to watch, but I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with having great competition at the position throughout the season, right? Once he gets back healthy, once he grasps the defense, that's just going to push everybody. So it is what it is.
Hey, one thing to add, another position of note to be watched right now is nose. DJ Dell better watch his back. If he begins to sputter like he has been doing the past 3 years after announcing himself as the next Deron Payne, I'll let that sink in. Because here in practice, after every I can't talk. After every practice in the press conferences, Nick Saban is saying one name, Jaheim Otis. He has been wrecking folks every single day. He has Will Anderson being distracted from what he's supposed to do because he's watching this freshman destroy everything in front of him. This man has determination. He has that blue collar mentality. He's got that fire that we've been missing up front since Quentin Williams, to be quite frank. So yeah, if DJ Dell don't get it done, we might see Jaheim Otis. And shout out to this young man in terms of his determination. He went from weighing 416 pounds to weighing 343 pounds. He lost a person, guys. So you can only imagine what it's going to be like on the field.
I laughed so hard that camera fell. You're so stupid, dude.
But I guarantee you, by game 4, Jaheim Otis may be in the starting rotation.
You know who I'm interested.
Burrows.
You know, I know we're talking about all these different players, but I'm really looking forward to Jamar Gibbs, watching him against Texas. Let's see what we got in the comments. Bro, Tab Nation,
Texas.
Stephen Hicks. Oh, we're gonna get to that in a minute. We got 2 weeks. 2 weeks to the whoopings, I call it, when Ty Hayes is on.
They have
screen.
Some issues right now, by the way.
Ooh, do they?
What? I'm gonna get to that. I'm just reading some. Rotaz Steven. Where's Nick Saban? Where's your haters? Can you read Black?
They always in my comment section. I mean, it is crazy. I think all Georgians need me.
You know, that's what I love about. By the way, let me get out of this grab. Look, one more. That's the 3rd star chip on his shoulder. All right. So, sorry, I want to talk. Let's move to. Take me a little while because I'm not only directing. Let's talk a little bit about the Kangaroo Black channel. If you haven't watched his channel, he goes straight 1-2 punch with all the fans in college football. What's some of this haters saying right now to you about Texas and Alabama?
Well, they've been talking about Texas going to beat us for two months now. They've been talking about Texas going to beat us. They say we get Texas A&M. They done mentioned Arkansas. They done mentioned Tennessee. So to them, in their mind, everybody going to beat us, I guess. I don't know, man. They calling Alabama fans delusional, just like we calling them delusional. So it is what it is, man.
How are we delusional if we're actually backing up everything that we say?
Exactly. They tell me that we want to be like them, and I don't understand why. Why would we want to be like somebody that had to wait 40 years to get one national championship? Is my question.
Thank you.
You know,
I just don't understand why Texas think they got a chance. I know as a competitor, everybody thinks you have a once you put the pads on, the helmet on, you think you have a chance.
The players need to think they have a chance. Yeah, they need to think they have a chance. That's
absolutely.
Texas' team needs to think that. But
yeah, but if you're Hawaii and you step in Alabama, I mean, logically, you know, after halftime when it's 50 zip, you know, there's no comeback. Texas has a much chance of beating Alabama than I got beating Muhammad Ali in his prime. I mean, it just makes no sense that Texas thinks that it's confusing to me. I mean, I know you got to get your fans, you know, pumped up and yeah, let's go. Let's this. But Alabama is the Muhammad Ali of college football.
If you've never been exposed to Texas fans, that it probably is one of the most arrogant fan bases in college football, if not number one in that spot. Auburn may run their mouth, and you know, we had the little brother feud back and forth, but
it's no
Texas is a different level.
Piss on those trees.
That oil money, those rich oil tycoons.
Sorry, Ty.
But
see, I get lucky. I don't have a whole lot of, even in my content, right? I make some Texas content. I'm really ramping it up right now. Any of the Texas fans I've had talk to me, they've all pretty much well said we're hoping for a great season outside of week 2. Right? Like all the Texas fans that have commented on my channel for the most part are basically chalking week 2 up. They're like, yeah, we know it's fixing to happen. So we know that we're going to get rolled. We're not even worried about what happens in that game. And honestly, that's probably the best way to look at it is don't think you're going to beat Alabama, because look, if I'm looking for what Texas does well, right? Like, let's present this as an argument. What does Texas do well? They have fantastic offensive playmakers with Xavier Worthy, Bijan Robinson. Hopefully, Roshan's good. Isaiah Nayor, that injury is terrible. I thought he had great upside. Hopefully, I want nothing more than Ajayi Hall and Billingsley to get it together and then see their talent through. I think that'd be great. But you don't have a consistent offensive line. I think Kelvin Banks is a phenomenal recruit. I think his upside's great. Same with a lot of their guys. They're freshmen, right? They're going to be true freshmen. And yes, we can talk about A&M beating Alabama, but A&M wasn't in the same place Texas is right now, right? Like 2 totally different situations.
Don't get us started.
Yeah,
on Texas
that game is not going to be good for Texas. And then their defense is where I have so many questions, right? Like I'll give it to Sark, even without an offensive line. I mean, their offense was still decently potent. They managed to score, but the defense wasn't there. And like that if you have no defense against Alabama, you're going to get rolled. Like I just don't care how good offensively you are. You're going to get rolled.
Ty, I got to ask you something. What do you think? What do you think about the new? They just 5 hours ago they came up with Hudson Card is going to be bench, and Quinn Ayers.
They named Ewers the starters today.
Yeah, Ewers.
Yeah,
That makes complete sense. Like, let's think about it like this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody's surprised there. First and foremost, let's take everything at face value, right? Like, let's take their word that both of these guys were neck and neck. If that's the case, you go with the guy with higher upside. One guy hasn't been in the system for as long, so if they're neck and neck, you go with Quinn Ewers, right? Now, how is he going to turn out? No promises, but I got to watch him play in high school, and he was a 5-star quarterback. I mean, he was sensational. Personally, I think Cade Klubnik was every bit as good as Quinn Ewers, but that's not to say Quinn Ewers was a bad quarterback. He was a 5-star, unbelievable quarterback, but that offensive line isn't good, right? So, like, this is my biggest worry, and I'm interested in both of you guys' opinion on this. How are we going to fairly judge Quinn Ewers when that offensive line isn't going to give a rookie quarterback who's not Bryce Young with escapability, right? Like, Quinn's an athletic guy, but he's not Bryce with that freaky level of internal clock. How are we going to judge him this year with that offensive line, with the injuries Texas has sustained? Like, he's being put in a hard position.
Yeah. I think if you understand the game of football, you got to give him a pass. If
somewhat, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if you're expecting him to come in with unrealistic expectations of doing something similar to what Bryce did, then you're going to be sadly mistaken. You can't do that. You can't put that kind of pressure on the kid at all. Bryce Young is the exception, not the rule. And a lot of Texas fans are so determined and come hell or high water to be back that they're not willing to give Ewers or Sark the time to get there. You got to understand what Sark inherited. He inherited an absolute mess, a dumpster fire. And it takes a good while to overcome that, because you got to root out a lot of toxicity. And for those who've never played ball, who've never been in that locker room, and who just casual fans who operate off of hot takes, you're not going to see the severity of toxicity. But and I think it's going to be a competitive game in the first half. I think they're going to be amped up. I think Sark's going to have them ready to play. And I think this might be one of the games where Billingsley actually does have his head together and plays with a chip on his shoulder. What he does after that, who knows? But after the first half, it's going to be a complete 360 in Alabama. The talent's going to come through. The offensive line is going to collapse. And I'm sorry, our front seven is actually going to destroy them unless there's some kind of divine miracle that we don't know about, gentlemen.
Well, before we get Kangaroo Black, did you share your opinion on this?
Not yet.
Go ahead.
But my opinion for us, Texas and Quinn Ewers, you're right. He don't have an offensive line. They're not going to be able to protect us. So we will not have a clear idea of how good this guy going to be. At least not this year. I'll say not this year. Also, as far as Quinn Ewers, from what I read today, Sark did not name Quinn Ewers as the starter. It was put out that in the press conference, Sark said that the battle was still going, and then 3 or 4 hours later, this other guy was having a press conference, and it was said that Sark called this guy while he was having his press conference and said Ewers was going to be the starter. But the speculation is that the boosters was putting pressure on Sark to not go ahead and name Ewers as the starter. So I don't know, far as too much about that. That's just what I read today.
Well, one thing I know about Texas football, the boosters pay the bills, and that's why the Texas Longhorns parking lot looks like a Chrysler dealership. So,
and that right there, that's an excellent point, Kangaroo Black. One of the biggest problems for Texas right now are those boosters. They won't get out of the way. They won't allow anybody to succeed because their hands are in too much. Until they get a coach like a Nick Saban, mentality-wise, in there, who's going to say, look, sit your ass down. It's my team. I'm going to coach that team. Until that happens, Texas is never going to be Texas again.
Right. I mean, Texas got a Jerry Jones in the house somewhere.
I was about to say that it's like a army of Jerry Jones.
Right.
Look,
or Al Davis.
Look, when you are the richest state in the country, and you got the richest people in the country. I mean, let's face it, Texas is a very rich state. Ty, would you agree?
Oh yeah.
Not where you live.
Yeah,
well, not where you live. Because
I live in the northern point of DFW in Denton, right? So like if you're what's considered the DFW Metroplex, I live like at the very northern point of it. From Denton east to Frisco, McKinney, and then south, it's one giant city. Concrete doesn't stop. It is one giant city. It's different. Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
Yeah, Texas has always been financially taken care of. The football players always got the best cars, the best food.
Plano's got like a $40 million stadium.
Look, I mean, come on. You go to Texas, your gas is free.
Well,
just saying.
I wish, but
no, I said you go to Texas University.
Oh yeah, Texas no, I should have gone to Texas then. Yeah.
Yeah. No, not as a student. You got to be a football player. You don't even have to be a good football player. You could be a walk-on. That gas is free. All right, listen. Last question tonight, because everybody's got something to do. I got a Kangaroo Black video I got to watch. It's 9 minutes long, and I got to jump on that. However, I got to ask all three of y'all, if Alabama can get past Utah State and Louisiana Monroe, because obviously that's the toughest competition we got in the schedule this year. If we get past, yes, Utah State and Louisiana, if they can get 2 schools, Alabama's going to win the national championship. If we get past those 2 schools, what? We're not going to get past Utah State? What?
No,
I'm not saying that. It's just
not a bad team.
They're not the homecoming opponent that a lot of people make them out to be.
Who? Utah State or Louisiana?
Yeah, Utah State.
Fuck. The heck with Utah State, okay? I would kick John Smith's tush. I can't cuss on here.
That's a BYU, sir.
Yeah. BYU, Utah State is all the same.
No, you're Mormons. But anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, I wish, one of my biggest dreams is to have like 4 wives, but then the one wife talks and then all of us start talking. Anyway, we get past Louisiana Monroe.
Bless America.
And we get past Louisiana Monroe. Who's going to be the toughest competition on the schedule? Some people say Arkansas. I disagree. Some people say Texas A&M. I disagree. Some people say LSU. I definitely disagree. And of course, you got some people that say unranked Auburn is going to really be somebody this year, and they're really going to bring it like they did this past year. I disagree. So, who is going to be the toughest team? We start with Justin.
Well, first of all, you can't ever overlook LSU. You know, a lot of people are trying to make.
I just did.
Well, Joey, I'm not going to talk about your football prowess, but anyway, LSU is not the bare cupboard that people are trying to play them off as. And with Brian Kelly leading the way, he could right that ship pretty quick if they're buying.
I hear you,
in.
AJ.
But that is not my team as far as who's going to be the most difficult. I actually got a couple of teams to watch out for. Yeah, Arkansas and Sam Pittman at their place. That's a tough place to play, especially with what they're bringing to us. KJ Jefferson back. A lot of good talent back. I'm also looking at that trip to Knoxville. Tennessee year 2 under Josh Heupel is going to be an amazing thing to watch. A lot of people are predicting them to be 11-2, guys. A matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and say
Tennessee?
it. No, that your boy Roman Harper that you're going to have on next week predicted that on the SEC Network.
I saw that on a Par Feinberg show. I saw that. I wasn't going to mention that, but
Tennessee is my dark horse to actually win the East. Don't be surprised if they do. Don't be surprised if they beat Georgia. I'm just going to say that. But
right,
the game that I'm honestly most concerned about is late in the schedule, and that's Ole Miss and Oxford, just because of where they are on the schedule. When we get to them, not only are they on the road, listen, Oxford is one of the hardest places to play. I'm going to tell you that. If you've never been to an Ole Miss game, when Alabama's playing them, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. But when we reach Ole Miss, we would have already gone through that gauntlet. You know, we're going to be beat up. We're going to be limping in. Usually by this time, we're kind of playing a softer opponent to where we can kind of lick our wounds a little bit, heal, recover, and then get ready get our second win and keep going. If we're not careful, this could be an issue. It could be an upset. It could be a lot closer than the experts think, especially if Jackson Dart turns out to be the quarterback that a lot of people are projecting him to be.
Kangaroo Black?
He's right. We got a gauntlet to go through. I mean, we start just from Vanderbilt, the first 4 games, we got to go through Arkansas, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Mississippi State, LSU, and Ole Miss. So I think if we're going to drop a game, I'm going with Tennessee also, simply because Tennessee is from last and the year before, and they got Hendon Hooker coming back. So, and Hendon Hooker is not a bad quarterback, and they got Hilton coming back at receiver. So, if our cornerbacks ain't up to par, then we might have some problems with that combination. So that's my game. The only reason I didn't mention Ole Miss is because the quarterback situation. He's a new quarterback. He's unproven, but if he proves to be an elite quarterback or whatever you want to call him, hey, Lane Kiffin always have a high-powered passing game. So if our secondary ain't what they have been, or even last season, the secondary. I put a video out with the numbers with the secondary, and it was bad. So if they ain't improved from last season, we could get upset by Ole Miss. So, but I got Tennessee as the game.
Before we go to Ty, we got our good friend Nick Saban in the house. Kangaroo, we were just talking about you. I was like, "Where's Nick Saban?" Kangaroo Black is on. Where's Nick Saban? And here he is, live in person. That's how we put. Hey, Kangaroo Black. You remember that time we put him out? We gave him. Yeah, we said call. Yeah, and we didn't hear nothing.
He didn't call.
But
nothing.
I love the keyboard warriors, baby. I love it. Ty Hayes.
Hey, as they call it thumb thugging. I'm gonna pop a cap on my keyboard, dog. Shit. I mean, shoot. Sorry, Ty.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This Tennessee
Now,
rivalry is
we
about
are-
to take a swing back towards what it used to be, and this is a Tennessee team that actually has a competent head coach, knows what he's doing, knows how to coach people up. And if you remember, guys, if not for a few self-inflicted wounds on Tennessee's part last year, could have been a different outcome.
Yeah.
Ty, what you got?
Yeah, so look, I'll start East. I think completely Tennessee, the fact that we play them, they're going to be a much improved team. I think if you're looking at quarterbacks to watch this year, Hooker's got to be on that list. I mean, he's absolutely got to be on that list. So Tennessee is going to be a tough game. I really like the Ole Miss pick as well, because if Jackson Dart is that guy, and let's understand that the USC fans thought highly of him, right? Like they liked him. They were hoping they'd keep him. And even when Caleb Williams transferred there, I made a video, and you'd be surprised how many USC fans, I'm looking forward to the UFC fights tomorrow, came to me and said, hey, don't count out Dart. He's a guy that, like, he's not going to, like, if this goes to a battle, it's going to be close. Ultimately, he transfers. But guys, it's not just Dart for Ole Miss. What do we know can hurt Bama bad? Athletic tight ends. Well, Dart's good buddy Michael Trigg transfers over with him, and who is the conduit to this offense? Only one of the greatest offensive mind, not only in college football, but in all of football. Lane Kiffin. Love him, hate him, whatever you feel about him. He's going to hurt your defense. That's the one thing we know about Lane Kiffin. That's the one consistency we know. And it's crazy that in a year where they get Jackson Dart and Michael Trigg, I can have an easy argument that that's not the biggest transfer portal acquisition they get. Zack Evans, the running back that comes from TCU, that guy has got he averaged like 7.6 yards per carry. He just wasn't used a lot at TCU. He was the #1 running back in the nation, a top 10 high school football player up until he had some stuff happen in high school. Yeah. I mean, this guy is really talented. I mean, really, really talented. So I love the Ole Miss pick because so many people are going to write it off. So I do love that both of y'all picked that. Arkansas, you cannot count out Pittman. They bring back Catalon, who's going to be one of the best defensive backs in college football. They keep their linebacking core. And by the way, they add in Drew Sanders to that linebacking core. I love Drew Sanders' game. I'm going to come completely clean here. But once again, I'm from Denton. He came from Denton Ryan. I watched him play inside linebacker at Denton Ryan and dominate. So I've seen him do it at the 6A level at Texas. So can he do it at Arkansas remains to be seen. But I'm not going to sleep on Arkansas. The one thing I do like in that game, though, they got to show me something at receiver, right? They lost a lot of talented wide receivers. Still a great quarterback. Jayden Hazelwood comes in from Oklahoma, former 5-star. What can he do? That's going to be the question, but I'm very excited for Hazelwood in particular. Guys, LSU, Justin, I completely agree with you. People are talking about LSU like they're not LSU. They are still the team that has got athletes that can compete with Ohio State, with Alabama, with Georgia. And let's not get it misunderstood because Kelly didn't win a national championship. He made it to the playoffs multiple times. And there's only a few coaches who can say that. So the guy can very clearly coach. And now he's got access to talent very few states have. And gentlemen, where's that talent at? That defensive line, LSU Fields, is going to be terrifying. Mason Smith in year 2 is a name to watch nationally, right? I mean, that guy's going to be great. BJ Ojulari. I mean, that defensive front for LSU is going to be very, very good. Bama's got an inconsistent offensive line. On paper, we need to see how it comes together. I love the coaching hire. I don't know about both of y'all. Before we get out of here, I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on Coach Wolford, because when I've gone and rewatched film, a lot of our woes came from, in my opinion, not understanding the assignment as opposed to just getting beat. Love to hear y'all's take on that, but I think it's either Tennessee or LSU for me. I think people are really going to sleep on LSU. Jayden Daniels comes there from Arizona State. I get it. Jayden Daniels didn't have the sophomore year so many people wanted, but can we blame him when Arizona State has been the definition of chaos? The one year there wasn't chaos, he lit college football on fire. So Arizona State's quarterback Jayden Daniels going to LSU is a move not getting the traction it deserves. That's going to be a tough game.
It's going to be interesting to see what he does because now he actually has weapons. He has stability. He has coaches that can coach him up. You remember this guy who is the guy who upset Oregon when Oregon had Justin Herbert.
Yep.
So, yeah, if he gets rolling, LSU offense may be something to look out for, especially with Kayshon Boutte. I mean, those two – ooh. So, yeah, this isn't a pushover.
No, but I'd love to hear it because I don't know how much both of y'all have gone back and rewatched the last season for Alabama, but in my notes, I mean, constantly, it's instead of getting beat one-on-one, it's two guys are going to block one person and someone just sliding in the open hole, and it's a clear bust assignment. What are y'all's thoughts before we get out of here on Coach Wolford? I'm sorry to take this, Joey, but I'm just really interested in gauging the masses on Wolford because that's a video I'm going to be putting together here very soon.
Kangaroo, I'll let you take this one since I've said a lot.
Well, I like what Coach Wolford is doing. You know, Coach Wolford, he had some pretty good offensive lines at Kentucky. Mm-hmm. So now I think what he's doing here, he's focusing on improving from where we was at last season. I don't think he's trying to make the offensive line an elite offensive line, a great offensive line, just good enough to protect Bryce Young long enough and to open up some holes for the running game. All right. And then he can, take steps and do the rest. But for the spring and fall, I think that's what he was working on. Now, I do love what he's doing as far as recruiting because he's on it in recruiting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's got 5 offensive linemen already. The smallest one is 6'3", like 275. Then you're going up to 6'7", 360, So I love what he's doing as far as recruiting, getting those big guys so they can't be easily pushed off the line. But I think this season, I don't think we will have nearly as many busted assignments as we did last season. But I want to see how that right side is going to be this season because there was a lot of busted assignments on the right side last season coming from Chris Owens. So
he was in a long position.
Who's going to be that? Who's going to take over that center position? So, but from what I hear, the first team offensive line is doing great things. Second team needs some work, but I think they're going to, probably, rotate those guys as far as this scrimmage tomorrow to see who's the best guys to fit. Because now it's crunch time now, so you ain't got long. But I like what he's doing.
First of all, Doug Marrone was an absolute disaster. He was in over his head, and what really stuck out to me the most was he didn't have relationships with the players. It kind of seemed to me like it was an arranged marriage. It had the look and feel of relationships, and but if you get below the layers, there was really nothing there. They couldn't connect with him. And it wasn't until 75-year-old Joe Pendry came out of retirement in the SEC championship game and against Cincinnati that we resembled any hint of offensive line. In walks Eric Wolford. Already the atmosphere has greatly changed. He's a blue-collar guy. He's got that fire in him. He's an offensive line whisperer. And he already has these guys doing an about face. I think that he's going to right the ship immediately. The only thing that I've kind of noticed here that's kind of concerning here in practice is that Darian Dalcourt's been getting first-team reps over Seth McLaughlin. I see that as a mistake. To me, gentlemen, Dalcourt just isn't it. Last year, he was just too inconsistent, got worked at times, often looked lost. McLaughlin brought stability from the first snap. He owned his position. He dominated those in front of him, especially Georgia. He handled Jordan Davis. Let's not forget about that. He reminds me a lot of Landon Dickerson, not quite as big, but the same kind of attitude. But already we see some improvement on the offensive line because Tyler Steen and J.C. Latham are starting to bring stability to that offensive line. So I love what Wolford's doing. I'm excited what he's doing. If we can put an offensive line together, then good Lord, what our playbook will look like and what Bill O'Brien will be able to do. Look, there's a lot of play calls he made last year that I didn't necessarily agree with. But when you remove emotion from it and you just kind of look back at things, Bill O'Brien was handcuffed, gentlemen. He was limited in what he could do because the offensive line provided no running game. And hats off to Brian Robinson for still doing what he was able to do with no offensive line. Kind of reminded me of back in the day when Barry Sanders was at Detroit. He had no offensive line. Everything he got, he produced himself. So, yeah, year two, if we had the offensive line, Bill O'Brien is going to show you some things. You're going to be like, wow, where was this? And now that all of our running backs are healthy, good Lord, look at the talent that we're going to be using. The question is, how are we going to use it all?
And I just keep on thinking back of what Bryce could have did if he'd have had a decent O-line. Or what, like you say, Brian Robinson could have did. You know, I mean, just a decent O-line. I mean, it would have been crazy. So that's all we was missing.
And one thing that I don't disagree, Justin, about Dalcourt. I mean, when you go back and watch, I mean, there was a lot of inconsistencies. One thing, I think I'm a bit higher than you are because I look at how many inconsistencies there were, and I have to wonder, man, if this is so inconsistent across the board, it's got to be coaching, right? So I have to wonder if Dalcourt is a victim of bad coaching. And look, I have to eat crow on Marone. When he first came to Alabama, I was someone who looked at the situation, said, you look at the time he's had in the pros, you look at he's worked with offensive lines in the pros, we want to prep the guys for the professional league. This is looking on paper like it could be a great hire. It was not. It flat out wasn't. I'll eat my crow there, no doubt about it. I was 100% wrong. But Dalcourt, I don't disagree. I will hold off judgment, though, just because I do believe that the offensive line coaching was largely to blame, but I don't disagree that whenever Seth came in there, he handled his business. And I also completely agree about play calling. I think there were stretches where Bill O'Brien was visibly frustrated in his play calling. I'll give you some examples. Against Auburn, there were times where if you go back and watch, it'd be first down, we'd be trying to take a long shot. Second down, we're trying to take a long shot. Third down, we're trying to take a long shot. What that tells me is Bill O'Brien's looking at the situation saying, we can beat these guys over the top one-on-one all day long. Bryce isn't getting the time because the pass rush is back there by the time he catches the ball. They knew they were confident in their matchups, but once we started going to the quicker plays, boom, that's when that last drive happened. I just can't wait to see. Kangaroo, you make a great point about J.C. Latham. I did my whole soliloquy and didn't even mention him. That's a guy who he could come in and be a saving grace along with Tyler Steen. Very interested in the guard position, but I think the offensive line's looking up. I think it's a position I can't wait to see it. I'm probably as excited about wide receiver as I am about offensive line, but even then, like it's just a whole lot of fun to look forward to what's going to happen.
If the offensive line is up to par, then I don't think we'll have any issues with the wide receivers.
100% agree.
All right, y'all. So, past the hour point. Let's go ahead and do our business. Let's start with Kangaroo Black. He's on Tuesday nights now on the CTS. Go ahead. What, Justin?
Oh, I was going to ask you guys, since you bought the wide receiver room, who do you feel like are going to be the starters?
You did that.
Kangaroo, let you start.
You did that at my closing.
I did.
I got Jermaine Burton.
Go ahead.
Ja'Cory Brooks, and maybe Tyler Harrell, maybe. But if not Tyler Harrell, I think one of them freshmen is going to get in there, like a Kendrick Law or Aaron Anderson.
Oh yeah. So
that's maybe Isaiah Butler. So that's what I'm going with. But the definite two is Jermaine Burton and Ja'Cory Brooks.
Completely agree with those two. Outside of that, I mean, I'm going to be very honest with you. I'd be giving you my best guess. I think Tyler Harrell makes the most sense. Now, I don't know the extent of what's been said about I took it as an injury situation. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But like whenever they said that he wasn't fully available, we'll see. Christian Leary. I mean, that's a guy who's been in the system here, right?
I forgot about him.
he could be a slot demon. And I think the cool thing about Leary is we could actually get in some split back formations, he and Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield, right? And go a personnel like that. And a defense having to account for both of those guys coming out the backfield on routes. Good luck trying to stop that with whoever the other 3 wide receivers or 2 wide receivers tight end, whatever the formation you put out there. So Christian Leary's a guy, but man, to y'all's point, these freshmen, are you serious? Anderson, Preston, Law, Kobe Prentice, Bond, these dudes right here, that was a phenomenal wide receiver class. I think people overlook it because there wasn't the universal 5-star, right? Like on 24/7 Sports, we had the 5-star. But that wide receiver class was as good as any wide receiver class Bama's had in recent memory. So take your pick from there. Every day it seems like a different freshman is showing out in practice.
Absolutely.
Nobody cares. I got Christian. Go ahead, Justin.
I'm going to go ahead. Of course, it goes without saying Jermaine Burton on lock. I mean, he is demonstrated every single day. But Ja'Cory Brooks has always been a lock to me, too, because what stands out to me the most in big-time situations, he made big-time plays. And I'm not just talking about the Auburn game. I'm talking about the Texas A&M game when we're reeling. We're looking for something to kind of get things going. He blocks a punt, returns it for a touchdown. Oh, and then, yes, the Iron Bowl, the game that will live in infamy. And if he decides to run for mayor of Tuscaloosa, he'll win just because of that alone. And he did well against Cincinnati. As far as Tyler Harrell, I'm not completely sold on him. The only thing that I keep on hearing constantly about him is how fast he is. But what about the intangibles? How are his routes? How are his hands? How is he adjusting to the culture? And him adjusting to the culture has actually been brought up here a lot lately. So that's a concern for me. You know, aside from the minor bumps and bruises they're talking about, and again, maybe to mask the fact he's not really picking up things, he's been having a hard time. I was really disappointed when JoJo Earl went down. I honestly thought that this was going to be his coming out party.
Same.
And Trayshawn Holden just isn't doing what I thought he was. And I've been a big fan of his, and I just been waiting for it to happen. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, but yeah, absolutely. Christian Leary is that guy. He is so fast, so twitchy, has the whole package. But I got to agree with you, gentlemen. If the veterans don't get it done, look out for Kendrick Law and Aaron Anderson. Yeah, they're green, but they seem to understand the assignment right now. And if you watch them in A-Day, if you watch any of the practices in the spring, these kids are ready.
Well, you want to know the highest praise I heard from Saban all offseason? He praised Anderson's physical abilities, which is always rare, right, for Nick Saban to talk about a freshman and single them out by name. That's great. Gentlemen, what did he say about Law? He said not only does he have the physical, he understands what it takes to be successful. Nick Saban said that about an early enrollee. This is the man who's constantly preaching, understanding, and loving the process, saying, hey, this is a guy who comes in and gets it day one. He's a guy who's focused on the small things. Whenever Saban said that, just being someone who almost studies Nick Saban, I can't tell you how many Saban books I have behind me that I've read. So as someone who almost studies him, I was like, that's, you know, that meme of Leonardo DiCaprio from, I think, Not Another Time in Hollywood, where he points at the TV. That's me. When I hear of Saban saying that about Kendrick Law, I'm like, yep, that's the buzzword. That's the buzzword. So what an exciting time for the wide receiver room. I always talk about in my video, there's no shortage of talent. There's a shortage of experience.
Right.
And we got another one coming
All right,
in.
y'all.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Benson.
Listen, we got to head out. It's been over an hour. Let's go ahead and take care of this now. Kangaroo Black, he's on Tuesday nights now on the CTS Sports Room with the Forceman. And also, if you missed the live version, Spencer Kangaroo Black got it set up where you can go to the Kangaroo Black YouTube page and watch Rolling with the Tide on his page. Kangaroo Black, tell everybody where we can find you on social media and tell everybody about your great YouTube page.
You can find me at Kangaroo Black on Facebook, Instagram, my YouTube page, basically talking Alabama football, talking shit about the reigning national paper champions, and hey, that's about it, man. And hey, it's all about Alabama though.
It's the rawest YouTube channel you could ever find. I mean, Barstool Sports has nothing on this guy. He tells it how it is. Speaking, coming with facts and statistics.
Sports. They're not a credible source, sir.
I like Barstool. I can watch Barstool Sports again. I like Barstool. I always like Barstool Sports. I can watch them again now. I was being loyal to a friend. I got friends a jackass. I'm watching Barstool Sports. Ty.
Sir.
Your YouTube page is basically my YouTube page, but with facts and statistics. Tell everybody where we can find you.
Football knowledge.
And full knowledge. Tell everybody where we can find you on social media, and tell everybody about your YouTube page. And by the way, usually, sometimes when he doesn't come up with a good excuse, he's right here on Thursday nights with me. But sometimes it takes him a little time to come up with a good excuse why he can't make it. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ty. Tell everybody about your great YouTube page and where we can find you on social media.
Yeah, you can find me at Around the Table Sports on YouTube. I am constantly uploading college football content. It's a little bit of an obsessive problem I have. So, it pretty much never ends.
All right. Now, listen, the guy who helped build the CTS Sports Room, the Bama Cert. You can catch it on TDA Live. You can catch the Bama Standard YouTube page. Also, you got the Justin Riley Network. He's a man of many talents and many ways of income. Justin, go ahead and tell everybody where we can find you on social media and all the great YouTube channels you have now produced.
Okay. In regards to that Justin Riley Network, I've kind of put that in the back burner. But first and foremost, the Bama Standard is live every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern on Touchdown Alabama Magazine's YouTube channel. We give Alabama analysis, and we also have interviews with legends. We're 90% chaos and 10% sports talk. A lot of fun. Not your typical podcast, and we're not politically correct. So if that's your thing, check us out. Actually, next week, if you want to kind of start watching us, Brody Kroll will be our guest. And then 2 weeks after that, we are waiting to hear from Walter Lewis. He may possibly be joining us, but also look on our YouTube channel. It's still fairly new. We have clips from interviews with legends, also Alabama recruiting news, just about anything you can think of. One thing of note, I want y'all to turn your attention to, we did a video with Tony Dixon, former Alabama safety, Dallas Cowboys safety. He talked about how this Alabama defense can be the best ever. He was actually on one of the top defenses in school history in 1999. So he knows a little bit something about what a defense is supposed to look like. He lists out what they need to contain. So definitely tune into that. Tell me if you agree with his predictions. And then also too, he also dealt with life after football in a difficult way. He was forced to leave the game a little earlier than what he thought he would. And that was due to injury. So he talked about overcoming depression and suicidal thoughts. And that's something that's really prevalent now. And he's just now talking about it. So I encourage people to check that out. And also, listen, recruiting is hot. No one is having a better summer than Alabama. And I encourage you to check in with that, not only my channel, but this other gentleman's channel as well. We're going to have another announcement this Monday. Mr. Hill is going to be making his announcements at 6 p.m. And, man, we got a lot to be excited about. Keon Keeley, any day now, maybe making that big announcement. And he's already been crystal ball to Alabama. So a lot to be excited about. I know a lot of people got upset this past week when the young gentleman from Gardendale decided to go to Florida. But I can't help but think it's all part of a precise plan. And if it plays out the way I think it's going to play out, we're going to be all right.
And ladies and gentlemen, please, CTS Sports Room, check it out. You got people like myself. You got the Four Horsemen, Spencer William, Roll Tide Rise Up. You got Kangaroo Black. You got William Bryant. It's going on. It's going on live here at the CTS Sports Room. We got to head out. And remember, Auburn fans, the people that tolerate you, those are the real heroes. Good night.
Oh, shit.